Celebrating Snowdonia, its wildlife and heritage, the Snowdonia Society works closely with local communities, organisations and businesses. Its mantra, celebrate, enhance and protect. Well, Hugh Jenkins is Radio Wales community reporter. He's volunteer for the Snowdonia Society, journalist and author, and committed to protecting Snowdonia's future. He's recently been handed the baton, acting as the Society's director. Welcome, Hugh.
Good afternoon, Louise.
It's quite a role, isn't it? And quite a responsibility, particularly in an area that's so close to your heart.
It is, both a privilege and a pleasure to look after it for a while, and I hope I can hand it back to Sarah, who's the real director, when she comes back from her maternity leave at the end of the year. I hope it'll be as good as when she handed it over to me.
I'm sure. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, the Snowdonia Society itself.
Well, we've been going since the 1960s, got about 1,500 members, and what you've got to remember is we are a charity, so, charities need help, they need members, they need donations, so please keep on giving. It's very important. So we were set up to celebrate, enhance and protect Snowdonia National Park, which is, of course, the third national park to have been established in England and Wales. The Peak District was the first one, and that was set up in 1953. 823 square miles. It's a huge area. It's 10% of the land mass of Wales, and we've only got 1% of the population. So listen, there's plenty of space up here. Do come and visit. And even if you all came, we'd still find room for you all.
And of course, Snowdonia is mountainous, but there's so much more to that part of the world than the mountains.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously within the mountains, there's all those quarries and mines. So one of the things we do is we organise events. We organise about 2 events a month so that people can get out and find out more about what's going on in Snowdonia. And guided walks across the mountains are quite common. Quite often, though, we take people underneath the mountains through some of these old slate mines so they can see what it was like to be a Victorian slate worker. A walk we've got at the end of the month is to go out and visit the wild daffodils while they're in bloom. There are very few clumps of native wild daffodils in Wales, so we're going to be led to see some pristine daffodils on display. So events, that's a key part of helping people understand just how much variety there is out there. And tonight's event, in fact, just a quick plug for this, is a clog making event. So Trevor Owen, who's the only clog maker in Wales, he makes dancing clogs. He's going to be giving our members and guests a talk at Tremadog Memorial Hall at 7 o'clock tonight. So come along if you'd like to see them, how they're made, and Trevor will actually demonstrate how to dance in them.
Oh, wow, that's quite something. Are you going to have a go? You going to have a dance?
Well, I have got a pair of Trevor's clogs myself. They were my Christmas present last year. But I have to admit, I have to confess when I see Trevor tonight that I haven't worn them in yet.
Well, tonight's the night, Hugh, obviously. Hey, tell me a bit more about the daffodils. I'm a big daffodil fan. They're my favourite flower. The wild daffodils, what are they like? Are they bigger or smaller than a daffodil that we might see in the shops?
Well, I actually saw one yesterday. I was doing some work at the Ugly House, which I'd like to come on to talk to you about in a moment. But we've planted loads of these in the woodlands around the Ugly House. And it's got a posh name, but I simply can't remember what that is. But native wild daffodils, and you can find them. There are suppliers of them, but they're small. They're like a narcissus. It's probably from ground to the flower head is probably about 9-10 inches, and it's got a pale coloured outer petal. Looks beautiful and not as bright and garish as those big things that have come from the continent.
Yeah, just explain to me how you go about planting wild daffodils, because if they're wild, you just assume that they sort of they mature and then they sort of spread themselves. But you can actually get bulbs, can you?
We got ours from, I think it was from an outfit called Naturescape. But a similar story, we were also planting yesterday snowdrops. Lots of people do that. But we were also planting wild bluebells, supplied to us by this amazing entrepreneur called Vera Bluebell, who's a lecturer at Bangor University. And so we were planting she's got a licence from the Countryside Council for Wales to provide bluebell bulbs on a sustainable basis.
Her name really isn't Bluebell, is it?
That's her trade name,
Oh,
Vera
right,
Bluebell.
right.
Just Google it, you'll find her website.
I thought she'd have to be into bluebells if her name was like that. Oh, how fantastic. And
As
so,
we-
because the bluebells that I've got in my garden, I think are a Spanish import. They're an imposter. They're not the traditional ones that I remember. We used to have a beautiful bluebell wood near where I lived in Llandegfan on Anglesey that we'd go through every, it'd be April, I think, when the bluebells came up. Just stunning. But the bluebells I've got in my garden aren't the same. They're not the same. It's nice to have the traditional ones, isn't it? And nice to, like you say, to plant them and keep them growing, and hopefully they'll naturalise and spread. Exactly. Yeah. Tell me a bit about the Ugly House, Tihech.
Well, the Ugly House is what lots of people think of when they think of the Snowdonia Society. It is that building. It's just beyond Betws-y-Coed as you're driving towards Snowdon, on the right-hand side. And why on earth it's called the Ugly House, I don't know, because I think it's absolutely beautiful. But until recently, it was a pretty boring old office. It was the Society's office. But now, as of mid-last year, it's the most fantastic tea room with honeybee centre, surrounded by 4 acres of pristine woodland, which we're nurturing. There's a wildlife garden, and what's the really interesting part of the project is that we're making it a centre of excellence for the rearing of native queen bees, and we've got a couple of hives in the top of the woodland already.
Oh, wow.
I'm not an expert on bees, so don't get me all complicated questions back, but as I understand it, there's a dire shortage of native queen bees, and across Wales there's something like 1,200 beekeepers, and if your queen bee happens to die, it's very difficult to replace it with a native queen. So it's quite tempting to go and order one off the internet from Slovenia, South Africa, or even Mexico, and these arrive by post. Imagine that, the indignity of post from South Africa.
It's no way to treat a queen, is it?
No. And then when you do arrive, you've got our weather, which I love to bits, and it keeps everywhere nice and fresh, but these bees are not used to it. They get grumpy, they suffer from diseases, and it's just bad news. So what we want to create is a plentiful supply of native queens, and we're doing this in association with the National Beekeeping Centre for Wales. So a bit of a love nest in the woods.
Oh, how lovely. Although I know very little about bees or beekeeping like you, Hugh, but I remember having a conversation with a beekeeper once who did say that the native Welsh bee was quite a bad-tempered bee.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, the ones at the Ugly House are very, very happy. And yesterday, when we were having one of our planting days, they were just all over the place.
Yeah.
And we had bags of snowdrops in polythene bags.
Yes.
And before we'd even got them out of the bags, the bees were into the bags, getting the pollen out. And it was just so gratifying to plant a clump of 10 flowering snowdrops, and within a couple of minutes to see the head of the flower just sink towards the ground with the weight of a bee inside it.
Oh, how lovely. I mean, you rely very heavily, don't you, on volunteers? That's how the Snowdonia Society operates.
We do. We've got a workforce of about 200 individual volunteers, and we probably take out a group of volunteers once or twice a week, and we've actually got a volunteer workday going on right now as I speak. In fact, I probably should have been there giving a hand, but it's a tree planting day along the shores of Llyn-Tegid, Lake Bala, and we're doing that. We're leading it with Bill Taylor, who's the local warden from the Snowdonia National Park, and the guys from the Rotary Club, the local Rotary Club, are helping out. So is the local Bala Tourism Association, and we've provided a whole load of trees, all the materials, and I'm looking forward to seeing the photographs from that. And another event that's just coming up, hopefully we'll be able to do it at the end of the month, is the big litter pick off Snowdon. I've done this a couple of times, and it's just absolutely appalling how much litter we do pick off our iconic mountain
isn't
top.
that a shame?
So,
you know, the visitors treat it so badly, really, by leaving litter. I mean, it's an absolute, well, it's a national treasure, isn't it? And a natural treasure, and it's such a shame.
We get about 35 people, and if you volunteer with us, you get a free ride up the mountain on the railway, which is well worth having. And so 35 people on the way down will easily fill 35 black bin liners, no problem at all. And the majority item is single-use plastic bottles, which is just so ludicrous, almost as ludicrous as the people who scoop up their dog poop, put it into bags, and leave it on the side of the path, which I think is the worst crime of all.
Yeah, why do people do that? I mean, if you're going to go to the trouble of picking it up, why not just take it and find the next bin or whatever it is, you know? Yeah, bonkers. But so lots of work needs to be done. And are you looking for volunteers all the time? I mean, you're always welcoming new people.
We're always welcoming new volunteers, and if you just Google Snowdonia Society, you'll find our website, and there's a link there for how you can get in touch if you want to join, if you want to become a volunteer, and if you want to know what times our tea rooms are open at the Ugly House, it's theuglyhouse.co.uk.
You teach traditional sort of crafts and skills as well, don't you?
Yes, and one of the passions is, for me and for many, is the dry stone walling, and this year will be the 30th annual dry stone walling competition. We're holding this not till mid-September, so don't get too excited yet. And we're going to be holding that at Egrin, the National Trust property, on one of the 2 days of the year that the property will be open to members of the public. So it'll be a great day. Come and visit that, see stonewalling in action, and we have categories for professionals, for semi-professionals, for amateurs, and for youngsters. And there are 3 prizes for each category, and I've entered 3 times. And on the occasion that there were only 4 competitors in my category, I really thought I was in with a chance of getting a prize, but I still haven't managed that.
Oh, maybe this is the year for it.
Yeah.
So how do you judge a dry stone wall? Is it on the speed of the building of the wall, or is it on the finished product?
The winning entries are usually the ones who put on the last capping stone about 2 minutes before the whistle goes at the end.
Yeah.
And the judging takes place by 2 highly experienced professional stone wallers who go around with clipboards, and they're looking over your shoulder all the time. You try and hide something beneath a bit of whatever, and they have spotted it. They're on you like a hawk, and so they just, when they've come past me, it's that horrible tut-tut noise, and you say, well, shall I start again? And they say, you haven't got time.
No, never mind.
So
keep practicing.
Yeah.
Keep building. I wish you all the best, Hugh. Really good to talk to you this afternoon. Hugh Jenkins is the acting director of the Snowdonia Society, and you'll probably recognise his voice from BBC Radio Wales. He's our community reporter for that part of the world too. Good to talk to you, Hugh. Thank you.
Thank you.